On my birthday, my sister texted me, I slept with your husband. 3 hours later, they died together in a car crash. The text came at 3:42 p.m. while I was blowing out candles at a surprise party my coworkers had organized. I remember staring at my phone, the world around me blurring as 31 candles flickered in slow motion. I didn't respond. What could I possibly say? Amber had always been the pretty one, the wild one, the one who took whatever she wanted, and David, my husband of 4 years, had apparently been something she wanted. The crash happened on Lakeview Drive, the winding road leading to our cabin. David's car plunged over the guardrail at the sharpest curve, the one I always warned him about when he drove too fast. The police said they died instantly. Small mercy, I suppose. At the funeral, I stood between two caskets, feeling like I was playing a role in someone else's tragedy. David's mother clutched my arm with bony fingers, her eyes red but oddly accusatory. They looked happy in the car, you know, she whispered as people filed past. Someone saw them at the gas station laughing. My mother sat rigid in the front row, her face a mask of grief and shame. The daughter who survived was the one standing. The one she was burying had always been her favorite. Extion knew it, even me, Ella, my father-in-law said, approaching with an envelope. There are some things from David's office, so it's effects. His voice cracked, but his eyes never quite met mine. And the keys to the cabin. We thought you might want to. I don't know. Get away. I took the envelope, my fingers numb. In ply were David's wedding ring, his wallet, and a silver key on a leather fob. The same key I'd watched him tuck into his pocket that morning when he'd kissed me goodbye, saying he'd be working late. As they lowered the caskets, a strange sense of release washed over me. The tears that came weren't for my husband or even my sister, but for the woman I'd been 3 hours and 20 minutes before that text, blindly happy, utterly clueless. Later, at the reception, I overheard David's colleague Ryan speaking in hushed tones near the bathroom. Shouldn't have been together at all. The whole thing stinks, man. When he spotted me, he paled and mumbled condolences before practically running away. By the time everyone left, the sun had set. I stood in our empty house, surrounded by sympathy flowers and casserole dishes. On the mantel, our wedding photo stared back at me, David's arm around my waist, my sister standing just behind us as my maid of honor, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. I took the photo and hurled it against the wall, glass shattering across the hardwood. But the violence brought no relief, just sharp edges and another mess to clean up. As I knelt to gather the shards, my phone buzzed with a text, unknown number. This wasn't an accident. Check the cabin. 2 weeks after the funeral, I finally gathered the courage to clean out Amber's apartment. Mom had refused to do it, claiming her heart couldn't take seeing Amber's things, the artifacts of a life unexpectedly cut short. I understood. I wasn't sure my heart could take it either. The super let me in with a pitying look. Take all the time you need, honey. Rent's paid through the month. I'd expected chaos. Amber's life had always been a beautiful disaster, but her apartment was eerily organized. Books arranged by color on the shelves, no dirty dishes in the sink. Even her bed was made with hospital corners, something our mother had never managed to teach her in her bathroom. I found a pregnancy test buried under tampons in the cabinet. I slid down against the cool tile, test in hand, wondering if David had known, if that's why they were together that day, if that's why they died. The buzzing of my phone startled me. David's mother. I let it go to voicemail, but she called again immediately. Ella, she said when I answered, her voice clipped. We need to meet. There are things you should know. We met at a cafe near her house, the kind of place that serves tiny sandwiches without crusts. Patricia had already ordered tea, her posture rigid as a mannequin's. How long did you know? She asked without preamble. Know what? About David and your sister? She spat the words like they tasted foul. I didn't know, not until that day, she scoffed, stirring her tea with unnecessary force. Don't lie to me. David told me you'd been having problems, that you were cold, distant. The accusation knocked the wind from my lungs. Patricia, I found out when my sister texted me minutes before they died. That's it. Well, she said, setting down her spoon with a clink. Perhaps if you'd been more attentive, he wouldn't have strayed. Men have needs, Ella. My husband and sister are dead, and you are blaming me. I'm just saying there were always two sides. David was a good man. Her voice broke slightly. He wouldn't have done this without reason. I found a pregnancy test in Amber's apartment, I said, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. Patricia's face drained of color for a moment. Genuine shock replaced her cultivated disdain. Then her eyes narrowed. Are you sure it was hers? The implication hung between us. Was she suggesting I'd been pregnant? Or that I'd planted it? Never mind, she said, gathering her purse. What's done is done. Richard and I are selling the cabin, by the way. Too many memories now. She stood, smoothing her skirt. Oh, and we'd like David's grandfather's watchback, family heirloom. As she walked away, I realized I'd never seen David wear an heirloom watch. Not once in our marriage. Back home, I searched his belongings, suits, drawers, the safe in his office. No watch. I did, however, find a burner phone taped under his desk drawer and a key I didn't recognize. That night, ignoring Patricia's comment about selling, I drove to our cabin. David and I had spent our honeymoon there, but in recent years, he'd used it more for work retreats than romantic getaways. The cabin was dark when I arrived, but something felt off. The door was unlocked, and inside, the air smelled faintly of perfume, not Amber's usual scent, something different. I flipped on the light to find the place immaculate. Not a speck of dust despite weeks of vacancy. On the kitchen counter sat a silver laptop I'd never seen before. When I opened it, the screen flashed to life, requesting a password. I tried the obvious our anniversary, David's birthday. Nothing worked. Then I tried the date of the accident. The screen unlocked immediately, revealing dozens of folders with names I didn't recognize. As I clicked through the first folder, my blood ran cold. Financial statements, offshore accounts, emails about merchandise movement and package delivery that clearly weren't about legitimate shipments. My phone buzzed again. The same unknown number. You're getting closer. Check your email tomorrow at 9 a.m. Don't trust anyone from his office. The package arrived by courier the next morning. A padded envelope with no return address. Just my name in typed letters. Inside was a USB drive, a folded piece of paper with a password written on it, and a business card for Lawrence Chen, attorney at law. My hands trembled as I plugged the drive into my laptop. The password unlocked a video file with a thumbnail of my sister's face. I nearly slammed the computer shut, not ready to see her alive again, but something made me press play. Ella, Amber said, her eyes tired but determined. If you are watching this, I am dead, and things didn't go as planned. I am so sorry about that text. I needed you to hate me just for a little while. It was the only way to keep you safe. I paused the video, my heart hammering against my ribs. The doorbell rang. Lawrence Chen himself, a solemn man in his 50s with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Your sister retained me 2 months ago, he explained, sitting at my kitchen table. She asked me to deliver that package if certain conditions were met. What conditions? Her death within specific circumstances. Miss Walker, your sister believed her life was in danger. She left instructions, evidence, and a series of scheduled emails that will deliver to you over the coming weeks. Evidence of what? My voice sounded distant even to myself. I think it's best if you hear it from her. He gestured to the laptop. I resumed the video, watching as my sister explained in meticulous detail how she'd discovered discrepancies in financial reports at Davy Corp, where she'd been working as a contractor for the marketing department. It started with expense reports that didn't add up, she said. Then I found references to shipments that weren't in any official records. David's signature was on everything. Ella, when I confronted him, he tried to brush it off, then he threatened me. My mind flashed Amber's sudden breakup with her longtime boyfriend 3 months ago, her withdrawal from family dinners, the dark circles under her eyes. I've been gathering evidence, she continued. Davy Corp isn't just cooking books. They're moving product, drugs, maybe worse. David's just middle management in the operation, but he's in deep. She leaned closer to the camera. I needed to get close to him to get proof. That's why I let him think I was interested. That's why I needed you to think the worst of me. Tears streamed down my face as the pieces clicked together. Amber hadn't betrayed me. She'd been trying to protect me. Check the cabin, she said. Here's a compartment under the kitchen floorboards behind the stove. Everything I found is there. I love you, Elle. I am sorry it had to be this way. The video ended. Lawrence Chen's expression remained carefully neutral as I looked up. What do I do now? I asked. That depends, he said, on whether you want justice or safety. Justice for Amber, who died trying to do the right thing. Justice for myself for the life built on David's lies. That afternoon, I returned to the cabin with Chen. Together, we pried up the floorboards to find a waterproof case containing thumb drives, printed emails, and photographs. David with men I didn't recognize, exchanging briefcases in parking garages and restaurant kitchens. Your sister was thorough, Chen remarked. This could be enough for the FBI if you want to take it that far. As we packed up the evidence, headlights swept across the cabin windows, a car pulling into the driveway. Were you followed? Chen whispered. Before I could answer, the door burst open. Ryan, David's colleague, stood in the doorway, his expression shifting from surprised calculation when he saw the open floorboards. Ella, he said carefully, what are you doing here? I could ask you the same thing, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady as Chen subtly moved the evidence case behind his leg. This is my cabin. Ryan's gaze flicked between us, his smile not reaching his eyes. David gave me a key ages ago, said I could use it whenever. He gestured vaguely. Thought I'd get away for the weekend, clear my head. We all miss him. The lie hung in the air like smoke. David had been many things, but generous with his possessions wasn't one of them. We were just leaving, Chen said smoothly, helping me up. Mrs. Walker needed some personal items. Ryan stepped aside to let us pass, but I felt his eyes boring into my back. In the car, Chen spoke urgently. We need to secure this evidence immediately. That man will report back to whoever he's working with. You think the accident wasn't an accident? Chen finished grimly. Your sister suspected as much. The next morning, I called in sick and drove to Davy Corp's sleek downtown headquarters. I'd visited David for lunch occasionally, but never paid much attention to the operation. Now I observed everything. The security protocols, the key card access, the cameras in every corner at reception. I dabbed my eyes. I am David Walker's wife. I need to clean out his office. The receptionist's face softened. Of course, Mrs. Walker. Let me call Hera to escort you. Jessica from HR was appropriately somber as she led me to David's 12th floor office. Take all the time you need, she said, swiping her card to let me in. Just check with me before you leave with any company property. David's office was pristine, too pristine, as if someone had already been through it. I made a show of collecting photographs in his favorite pen, all while scanning for anything Amber might have missed in the bathroom connected to his office. I pried open the vent above the toilet and found what I was looking for, a small notebook wedged against the metal. David had always been paranoid about digital trails. I slipped it into my purse just as a knock came at the door. Ella, a woman's voice, familiar but unexpected. It's Tavish, Mia Reynolds, Amber's best friend since college, and coincidentally Davy Corp's head of IT security. We'd never been close, but the relief on her face seemed genuine as I opened the door. Thank God, she whispered, slipping inside and closing the door. I've been trying to reach you securely. What? She held up a hand. Not here. She glanced at the corners of the room meaningfully. Meet me at Riverside Park in an hour. The bench near the boat launch at the park. Tagas handed me a coffee and got straight to the point. Amber came to me first when she found the discrepancies. We were working together. My surprise must have shown. She didn't tell you about me to protect us both, Tiest explained. But after what happened, she took a deep breath. Davy Corp's legitimate business is just a front. The real money comes from chemical shipments, precursors for designer drugs mostly. Your husband was the connection between the suppliers and distributors. And Ryan? I asked, remembering his unexpected appearance at the cabin. Ryan Kozlov is higher up the chain. He's dangerous, Ella. If he saw you at the cabin with evidence, she shuddered. You need to be careful. Why are you telling me this? You are putting yourself at risk. Mia's eyes filled with tears. Amber was my best friend. She didn't deserve what happened to her. She hesitated. To hear something else. The pregnancy test. It wasn't what you think. What do you mean? Amber wasn't sleeping with David. She was letting him think she was interested to get information, but she'd never have crossed that line. Ella never. Relief and grief collided in my chest. Then whose? It was a prop, Tazig said quietly, to make David think he had leverage over her. It was all part of the plan to get him to trust her with more details. As we parted ways, Chuesh pressed a burner phone into my hand. Only use this to contact me. And Ella, watch your back. These people killed your sister when she got too close. They won't hesitate to do the same to you. That night, I carefully examined the notebook from David's office. It contained codes, dates, and initials, nothing overtly incriminating, but combined with Amber's evidence, it painted a damning picture. David hadn't just been involved. He'd been essential to the operation. A car idling at the curb, engine running. Panic seized me as I remembered Tajista's warning. I grabbed the notebook and fled through the back door just as I heard glass breaking at the front of the house. I spent the night in a motel paid for with cash, clutching the burner phone and David's notebook. At dawn, I called Chen, who arranged for me to stay at a colleague's vacant condo. We need to move quickly, he advised. I've contacted an FBI agent I trust. We meet tomorrow. As I settled into the sterile condo, my regular phone buzzed with a text from Patricia, David's mother. We need to talk. It's about Amber. Every instinct told me to ignore it, but curiosity won out. I agreed to meet her at a public restaurant, alerting both Chen and Tajis to my plans. Patricia looked smaller, somehow her customary sharp attire replaced by a simple sweater that seemed to swallow her frame. Thank you for coming, she said, her usual bite absent. What about Amber? I asked, skipping flirting pleasantries? Patricia glanced around before leaning forward. She came to see me about 3 weeks before the accident. She asked about David's childhood, his father's businesses. Strange questions. What did you tell her? Nothing at first. I was offended. She twisted her wedding ring, but she showed me things, bank statements, photos. Patricia's voice dropped to a whisper. Richard, David's father. He wasn't always in legitimate business, you know, years ago before David was born. She trailed off. You're saying the family business has always been illegal? Patricia flinched. Not always. Not entirely. But there were connections, histories that never quite went away. She reached for my hand, surprising me. Ella, I didn't know what David was involved in, I swear it. But when Amber showed me, I recognized patterns, the same secrecy Richard had. Why are you telling me this now? Because I found us. She slid a thumb drive across the table. It has videos David arguing with someone about loose ends and the Amber situation, her eyes filled with tears. My son was talking about having your sister killed, Ella. The restaurant seemed to tilt around me in the accident. I don't think it was an accident at all. I think whoever David was working with decided he'd become a liability too. She wiped her eyes. I've lost my son, but I won't protect what he became. Your sister tried to do the right thing as we parted. Patricia ripped my arm. Be careful, Ella. These people, they're everywhere, even at Davy Corp's highest levels. The thumb drive contained exactly what Patricia described, damning evidence of David discussing Amber as a problem with Ryan and another man whose face remained off. Pribun, they used coded language, but the intent was clear. At one point, David looked directly into what must have been a hidden camera, saying, once this is handled, we go back to normal operations. That night, Tassets called on the burner phone. We've got a problem, she said without preamble. Someone's accessed Amber's cloud storage, the one where she backed up her evidence. They're digging files. Can't you stop it? Working on it. But Ella, they had her password. Only a few people knew it. A cold realization settled over me, including you. Silence stretched across the line, Maya. I didn't give it to them, she finally said, her voice strange, but yes, including me. I ended the call, my mind racing. Chen had warned me not to trust anyone, but I'd made exceptions for Tadish and Patricia. Now doubt crept in like poison. The doorbell rang Chen earlier than expected for our FBI meeting. I checked the peephole, relief washing over me at the sight of his familiar face, but as he stepped inside, something felt off. His movements were too rigid, his smile too fixed. Everything ready for tomorrow? I asked, casually testing. All set, he replied smoothly. Agent Thompson is eager to see what we've got. My blood ran cold. There was no Edt Thompson. I'd made up the name to see if he'd catch it. I just need to grab Amber's files, I said, inching toward the door. They're in my car. Chen's expression hardened. I don't think that's necessary right now, Ella. I bolted for the door, but he was faster, grabbing my arm with bruising force. You really should have left this alone, he said, his kind demeanor evaporating. Your sister didn't listen either. As he reached into his jacket, I grabbed the nearest object, a heavy glass paperweight, and swung with all my strength. It connected with his temple with a sickening crack, and he crumpled to the floor, hands shaking. I searched his pockets, finding a gun and, more disturbingly, a list of names. Mint was at the top, followed by Tanish's and Patricia's, all marked for cleanup. It had all been a lie. Chen wasn't Amber's lawyer. He was part of the operation sent to identify how much I knew and who I'd told. I fled the condo with only my purse, the burner phone, and the crushing realization that I could trust no one. 3 days later, I stood in the glittering ballroom of the Grand Meridian Hotel, dressed in a gown I charged to David's still active credit card. Resume, Seattle's business, elite mingled at Davy Corp's annual charity gala, oblivious to the wire taped between my shoulder blades after escaping Chen, who survived but was now in custody. I'd taken a desperate gamble. I'd called the actual FBI, using Amber's evidence as leverage for protection and a chance at justice. Could I raid me? A no-nonsense woman with decades of experience in organized crime had believed me. Just get Ryan talking, she instructed from the van parked outside. We need him to explicitly connect the operations leadership. I spotted Ryan across the room, looking untroubled despite recent events. Beside him stood Malcolm Warren, Davy Corp's CEO, and according to Amber's notes, the operations mastermind, Mrs. Walker. Ryan sat as I approached, surprise quickly masked by sympathy. We didn't expect you tonight. How are you holding up? Better than Lawrence Chen, I replied quietly, watching his eyes widen slightly. He's talking quite a lot from his hospital bed. Malcolm Warren stepped forward, extending his hand. Ella, isn't it? I don't believe we've been properly introduced. I'm so sorry about David. I shook his hand, noting the perfect manicure, the diamond cufflinks worth more than my yearly salary. Thank you. David spoke highly of you, did he? How flattering. Warren's smile was practiced, empty. David was a valuable member of our team. Irreplaceable, really. Apparently not that irreplaceable, I said, meeting his gaze, since operations seemed to be continuing smoothly without him. A beat of silence, Ryan's hand moved subtly toward his jacket. What operations would those be, Mrs. Walker? Warren asked, his tone light but eyes sharp. The ones my sister documented before you had her killed? I kept my voice low, steady. The same ones David was eliminated for when he became a liability. Warren's smile didn't falter, but something cold flickered in his eyes. He placed a hand on my back, guiding me toward a quieter corner of the ballroom. I prayed the wire was capturing everything. You are upset, he said soothingly. Grief can make us imagine conspiracies where there are only tragic accidents. Save it, I hissed. I have Amber's evidence, David's notebooks, and Chen's confession. I know about the chemical shipments, the offshore counts, all of it. His demeanor shifted, calculation replacing concern. And what exactly do you plan to do with this evidence? That depends on you. I bluffed. A public scandal hurts everyone, but arrangements could be made. Warren studied me for a long moment before laughing softly. You know, you are much more like David than your sister was. She had all these principles, he sighed. It made her rather inconvenient. My skin crawled at his casual reference to Amber, but I maintained my composed facade. I am practical indeed. We should continue this discussion somewhere more private, my office perhaps. Now I said the code word for agents to move in. Warren's eyes narrowed. I am sorry. I said now we should go. I want this resolved. But he'd caught something in my manner. His hand clamped around my wrist as he leaned closer. Who are you working with, Ella? He whispered harshly. Before I could respond, the ballroom doors burst open. FBI agents poured in, tactical gear stark against evening wear. Guests screamed and scattered as agents announced themselves. Warren's grip tightened painfully. You stupid bitch, he snarled, yanking me against him as he backed toward a service exit using me as a shield. Ryan had already disappeared into the crowd. Warren dragged me through the kitchen service staff, diving out of our way. I could feel something hard pressed against my ribs, a gun. You are not going to make it out, I said as he pushed through the loading dock door into the night air. The building is surrounded. Shut up, he growled, scanning the alley. A black Esfree idled 20 yards away, its driver alert and waiting. I had seconds to act. As Warren shifted his grip to open the car door. I remembered something Amber had taught me years ago, a self-defense move from the women's safety class we'd taken together. I drove my elbow back into his solar plexus with all my strength while simultaneously twisting away. He doubled over, gasping, the gun clattering to the ground. I kicked it away just as floodlights illuminated the alley and agents converged from both ends. Warren straightened, composing himself with remarkable swiftness. As agents cuffed him, he looked at me with something like respect. Impressive, he said calmly. But this isn't over, Ella. People like me don't stay in custody long. As they led him away, Etienne Rise approached, her face grim. Ryan Kozlov escaped, she said. We have teams searching, but the implication was clear. I wasn't safe yet. Might never be fully safe again. 6 months later, I sat in a federal courthouse, one hand resting protectively over my swollen belly, as Malcolm Warren's attorney delivered his closing arguments. The pregnancy had been a shock, a final gift from David. Discovered weeks after the gala, I'd considered terminating, agonized over bringing a child into this mess. But something about continuing what Amber had fought to protect, family, future truth, had ultimately swayed me. The trial had dragged on for months. Warren had, as promised, assembled a formidable defense team, but the evidence was overwhelming. Amber's meticulous documentation, Chen's testimony after cutting a deal, and recordings from the wire I'd worn at the gala. Ryan remained at large, a shadow lurking at the edge of my consciousness. The FBI had placed me in a temporary protection program until his capture, but I refused witness relocation. I wouldn't disappear, wouldn't let Amber's sacrifice be forgotten. Warren watched me from the defendant's table, his expression inscrutable. Throughout the trial, he'd maintained the same poised demeanor, as if this were merely an inconvenient business negotiation rather than a proceeding that could send him to prison for decades. The jury filed in after 3 days of deliberation. As the four women stood, I held my breath. On the count of conspiracy to distribute controlled substances, we find the defendant guilty. Relief washed over me in a dizzying wave. On the count of money laundering, we find the defendant guilty. My hand tightened on the bench. On the counts of conspiracy to commit murder in the deaths of Amber Walker and David Walker, the courtroom seemed to hold its collective breath. We find the defendant not guilty. Warren's face remained impassive, but I caught the slight upturn of his mouth, not quite a smile, but satisfaction nonetheless. He would serve time for the drug operation, but not for Amber and David's deaths. Not enough evidence, the jury had decided, not beyond reasonable doubt. Outside the courthouse, reporters clustered with microphones and cameras. Etienne's Rice shepherded me through the chaos to a waiting car. It's still a win, she said as we pulled away. Warren's going away for at least 15 years, but not for killing Amber. My voice cracked, and Ryan's still out there. Ray's expression softened. We'll find him, Ella. And when we do, we'll build a case for the murders. This isn't over. But it felt over, or at least paused in an unsatisfying limbo, just as half-served truth partially revealed. The following weekend, I visited Amber's grave for the first time since the funeral. The cemetery was quiet, dappled with late afternoon sunlight filtering through oak trees. I placed white lilies, her favorite, against the headstone. I did it, Ams, I said softly, lowering myself carefully onto the grass beside her marker. Not all of it, not yet. But Warren's going to prison. I ran my fingers over the dates etched in marble, the brutal brevity of her life. The baby's a girl. I am naming her Amber. Hope that's not too weird. A twig snapped somewhere behind me. I froze, suddenly aware of how isolated I was among the gravestones. Chunchin, I turned. Naya stood several yards away, her hands raised slightly to show she meant no harm. After Chen's betrayal, I'd cut contact with everyone, including her. The FBI had cleared her, found no connection to the operation, but trust didn't come easily anymore. I thought I might find you here, she said, keeping her distance. It's the 6-month anniversary. I nodded, one hand instinctively protective over my belly. How did you know I'd be here? She took a tentative step forward. And because I come here too, every week, why, to apologize. Her eyes filled with tears. I should have protected her better. We were working together, but I didn't know how dangerous it had gotten. I didn't know about Chen. I studied her face, searching for deceit, but finding only grief that mirrored my own. I have something for you, she said, reaching slowly into her bag and extracting a manila envelope. Amber had a backup plan, a final insurance policy even I didn't know about until last week. She extended the envelope. After a moment's hesitation, I took it. Inside was a thumb drive and a handwritten note in Amber's looping scrawl. Per Ella, if all else fails, I love you, sis. Can fill in it what I started. What's on it? I asked. Everything, Pite replied. Meetin' to put Ryan away when they catch him, maybe even enough for a new trial against Warren for the murders. Hope flickered in my chest, dangerous, fragile hope. To hear is more, Tio said. The FBI doesn't know this, but I've been tracking Ryan. He's in Mexico, but he's making moves, contacting old associates. I think he's planning to rebuild the operation. Why tell me this? Why not go to Rise? Maya's expression hardened. Because I am not convinced the FBI doesn't have leaks. How do you think Ryan got away? Shuwen warned him. The baby kicked, a sharp reminder of everything at stake. What are you suggesting? I asked, cradling my belly. I am suggesting we finish what Amber started on our own terms. Dest glanced around the cemetery. Ryan thinks he's untouchable down there. He's wrong. You want to go after him? Are you insane? I struggled to my feet. I am 7 months pregnant. Tashius, I can't exactly hop on a plane to Mexico for a revenge mission. Not revenge, she corrected. Justice, and not now, after the baby comes, when you are ready. She handed me a burner phone. My number's programmed in. When you decide, call me. I stared at the phone, then at the fresh evidence in my hands. The rational part of me knew I should take this straight to AD and Rise, but the system work protect my child above all else. But Warren's smug half-smile in the courtroom flashed in my mind. Ryan free and rebuilding David and Amber side by side in the ground without full justice. I'll think about it, I said finally. Maya nodded, understanding the weight of my non-commitment. That's all I ask. She turned to leave, then paused. Ella, Amber was right about you. What do you mean? She always said you were the strong one, not her. A sad smile crossed her face. After she left, I sat by Amber's grave until sunset, the thumb drive heavy in my pocket, the baby restless beneath my heart. The choice before me wasn't simple. Safety or justice, moving on or looking back. 6 weeks later, my daughter was born. Amber Patricia Walker, 7 pounds 3 ounces of fierce determination and new beginnings. As I held her in the hospital, her tiny hand wrapped around my finger, I felt a clarity I hadn't experienced since that birthday text message that had shattered my world on her 3rd night home. While she slept peacefully in her bassinet, I finally plugged in the thumb drive Tasich had given me. The evidence was exactly as described, damning, comprehensive enough to finish what AMB